Welcome to the DIY Goalie podcast, where hosts and goalie coaches Nathan Park and Connor Monday share their insights on how to become a better goalie. Goalies, how are we doing today? Hopefully you guys are having a good summer day now that we're kind of in the middle of the off season. We are back on the DIY Goalie podcast, presented by True North Goaltending, as always, with your hosts, Nathan Park and Connor Monday. And we're a little bit into the month, but we have yet to do a drill of the month, so we are going to pop that in for you guys today. And yes, we've been talking about it for a while, but we do have a couple guests lined up. We are actually supposed to have one that would have been coming out this episode, but there is kind of some scheduling conflicts that came up last second. But over the next couple of weeks, we do have a couple spots with some people that come on that we are excited to have on. So yeah, and then just a little PSA, I guess. It might be fixed by the time this airs, but if you guys are on the website trying to get some merch, we have been having a couple issues with the website that we're trying to figure out. So right now the store is just kind of disabled. So if you guys do want any merch, just send us an email at goalies@truenorthgoaltending.com and we can figure that out. So just as a heads up on that, it might be fixed by the time this comes out, but we're trying to figure a couple things out there. And yeah, that being said, we, as Connor alluded to, we have both of our week-long camps filled up. We do still have spots for our beginner camp that we're hosting this year, as well as our ringette camp. There might be a possibility I might pivot the ringette one to hockey. We will see. But we want to try and grow the kind of ringette side of things. So if you are a ringette goalie in the Edmonton area, come check us out and have a good time over the course of a 3-day camp. Learn lots. Get ready for tryouts in the fall. So other than that, I will pass it over to you, Connor. You've got the drill of the month locked and loaded and ready to go. And yeah.
First off, I'm fine. Thanks for asking. Yeah, I'm perusing the website right now. It does not appear that the merch store is back online yet, which we'll hopefully get that sorted pretty soon. A couple of things that I just kind of want to talk about quickly before I jump into drill of the month here. I did have the chance, again, thank you to Evan Carrillo for allowing me to come and do a couple of sessions for the Western Elite Showcase that happened in Edmonton a couple of weeks ago. So it was really cool to see that, and just to kind of see all the upcoming stuff, or all the upcoming players, and I didn't really get a chance to talk with really any teams, which I think would have been cool, but it is what it is. But other than that, it was a fun time. So thank you, Evan, for asking me to come and do that. On top of that, that's really all I just wanted to say. I just want to put the shout out there. So, but hey, look, we're back on the pod together. It's only taken us a couple of episodes, but and then yeah, like Nathan had alluded to as well, we were supposed to have a guest on this pod, but it ended up in my pocket. Nope.
No idea what you're trying to say.
No, sorry. My text messages were going off here, and I read pockets. So it's a nice Sunday morning. But yeah, no, unfortunately, just scheduling conflict happened, and yeah. All right, let's go to Jill a month. I should stop talking. We're going to jump into today. We haven't really touched on stick handling a whole lot in this or in our pod lately, so we are going to jump into that today. This one's always a fun one when we do this drill in our camps. It is the stick handling obstacle course. So basically, like any obstacle course, you have set up basically things to avoid, and so the goaltenders will start on one side of the boards. You can set this up anywhere. We just have it set up in the neutral zone. And you kind of follow the path that you go around the first cone located closer towards the red line, go around the second cone located closer towards the face-off dot, and then go a full 360 around the third cone that's kind of set up just below the circle, just kind of off to the side of the circle. Then you kind of want to do a little bit of Connor McDavid, where you stick handle around each puck, kind of in between each puck, And then same thing on the opposite side of the ice here, go around the first cone located towards the side of the circle or the face-off circle, then go around the second cone located towards the face-off dot. Go around the third cone that's located towards the red line, and then go around the fourth cone again, located about the same distance. Or about a distance away from the face-off dot pylon, and then that's kind of your route. The actual description goes: cones and pucks are set up in an obstacle course for goalies to work on their stick handling. Goalie does a figure eight around two cones in which they are facing forward the whole time, pivoting backward around around the first cone rather, and then forwards around the second cone. While handling the puck, the goalie then goes to the next cone, performs a tight turn around the cone. Next, the goalie skates over top a line of pucks while stick handling through them side to side. Last, the goalie must weave around a set of cones while carrying the puck through. Once the goalie reaches their tight turn, the next goalie can go. Each time the goalie goes, they should switch. They should switch directions in which they start the figure eight and switch directions on which they perform the tight turns. So key points for this one is to keep elbows away from the body when handling pucks as best as possible, to try and keep your head up while stick handling, and then work on keeping a nice in control of the puck and quick footwork as well. Does incorporate a little bit of edge work as well. But as they always say, the goalies, as much as the goalie should be the best skaters, the goalie should be the best puck handlers as well. So this is always a nice little fun, challenging one, and it's kind of funny as well sometimes when the goalie loses their puck and they have to skate like halfway down the ice to go get it. But it is what it is. But yeah, there's your drill of the month for this month, the stick handling obstacle course.
Yeah, I should probably actually go in and add it to the key points. The other key point that I will say, because I do see goalies do this, both hands on the stick, because a lot of goalies tend to just use their blocker hand, and not keep the glove on kind of that paddle or the shaft where it kind of meets the paddle. Having both hands on the stick is a really good habit to build. A lot of goalies just like to use just the blocker hand at the top. So that's a good one to do too. Make sure you guys are doing that. The other thing with these obstacle courses is you can literally set up however you want. You can change things around, make it fit to the age and the skill level. For older goalies, you can add kind of shooting into a small area, like a small net or whatever, something like that. There's lots of things you can do with these types of drills. You just get creative with it, have some fun with it, and that's kind of the point of those drills. So
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you talk about with the RVH, being an underrated skill or not something that gets talked about a whole lot. I honestly don't see stick handling will happen a whole lot too. It's kind of one of those things, especially in goalie camps, um, or even like month or like year long ones where like stick handling kind of gets shoved towards the end of the sessions, or just kind of towards the end of the year. Not really something that you see a whole lot on, or something that really gets dedicated a whole lot. So the more that we're able to do it, the better. Because again, if you're able to incorporate your goalies into like your power play or into your breakout, your penalty kill, or anything along those lines, it's definitely an option and something that will be successful to you and the team. So definitely, something for something like this, if goalies are able to have better control of the puck, and be able to, and are just more comfortable in using their stick other than what it's meant for typically, I don't think it would be a bad idea for that.
yeah, no, for sure. And that's it is a secondary skill. Like, obviously you don't need to stick handle to be a good goalie. You don't need to be able to play the puck to be a good goalie, but it does make things a lot easier. And when you get to the higher levels and you're neck and neck in skill level with another goalie, if they're able to handle the puck well and you aren't, that could be kind of that last little deciding factor, right? So it's always good to have that skill set. As somebody who is not very good at playing the puck, I can tell you it would have been a lot easier if I was good at it. And that it'll tie in a little bit to what we're about to talk about, because I think, I don't know, like some parents, some goalie parents, I guess, are so worried about specialization and getting goalies in, or like getting their kids into being full-time goalie all the time when they've made that decision to get them as much development as possible. And we've kind of talked about this on the cross training, but it does not hurt to have your goalie play out at some points, whether it is spring hockey, whether it is kind of just some, fun skates over the off season, or if you're playing ball hockey or inline hockey as a player, something like that, like getting used to shooting pucks, getting used to having those hands, stick handling a little bit, stuff like that. That's skills that are useful to a goalie, even if it's not directly related to what you do as a goalie. It's just like we talked about lots before. It's good to have that extra tool in the toolbox. So,
All right, let's move into what we're chatting about here today.
yeah. So kind of ties into to what we were just talking about with the specialization and stuff. But what Connor and I are going to go through a little bit of an interesting kind of thought exercise on our end, and kind of provide some insight for you guys, you goalie parents, you goalies out there. What we're going to do is we're going to take our knowledge of our previous, careers, and what we know now as goalie coaches, and, our infinite wisdom now of being around the game for however long. Um, and we're basically going to do an exercise where we kind of pretend like we're starting again now. Like we're starting over as kind of, your whatever 7-year old goalie. And we're kind of going to go through like our thoughts on how we would approach our progression, if we were kind of giving ourselves at 8 years old kind of advice moving through our career at this point. So kind of gonna go through, I think, some things to do on the development side, some things to do on the mental side, and kind of potential paths too. We can kind of touch on that. I know a lot of you guys listening, it won't really be relevant for, because we'll be talking a little bit about the Alberta side, but we'll try and keep it as general as we can, because I know that's a big thing a lot of goalie parents ask too, is should I go this route for my kids? Should I go that route? At what point should we be worried about AAA? At what point should we be worried about, if they're still playing house league, that sort of stuff. So we'll kind of touch on some of that stuff as well. But yeah, just kind of a little bit of a fun activity on a career reset. If we hit the reset button and we started at 7 years old today, how that would look. So,
We
uh,
did do a thing or do a pod however long ago where we talked about things that we would tell our younger selves. So
yeah,
this is kind of a similar thing, not really, because we're more so doing like a hard reset in terms of like if we're starting out for the very first time, this is what we would do differently using the knowledge that we know now.
yeah. So basically, the way I'm thinking about this too is because I have a 6-year old who has expressed interest in being a goalie. So I'm going to think about it from the aspect of, okay, if this is him, how are we? What's our ideal approach here? So,
This is where
but
this is where we see Nathan become the full-on crazy hockey dad, and so he's going to live
yeah,
vicariously through him.
yeah. So literally, he'll get 6 hours to sleep, and other than that, it's just on the ice every day.
You
But no,
mean you mean in the facility every day?
yeah,
Shameless
exactly.
plug.
Yeah. I don't know. How do you want to break this up? Do you want to just kind of go back and forth in like phases of the career, or what do you
Yeah,
think's the
I think
best approach?
I think how we can do this is kind of like we were talking about off air. So we'll kind of break it up by not like segments, but kind of break it up by, um, for lack of a better term, age levels, I guess. So if we start
Yeah,
at the U7, U9 up to U13, go from U15 to U17, and then juniors onward, essentially.
yeah,
One of us has experience in that regard, the other one doesn't. But I think if we break it up something like that, where it's not like, or if we just kind of break it up into categories, rather, that's the word that I'm trying to use, is break it up into like categories and be like, hey, in this category from U7 to U13, this is what I would want to focus on. From the category of U15 to U18, this is what I would do. From the category of juniors onward, this is what you should do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like that. I think that first group we might split up into two because I think if we talk about the initial kind of U7, U9 approach, and then we can kind of talk about U11, U13, because to me, I think that we are pushing kids a little too early into full time goalie, but I also think we're sometimes not pushing the position enough to everybody. So, what I mean by that is the kids that want to be goalie, um, and I know this one's tough because like I experienced this winter. Like our kid, he's around goalies all the time, around the facility, blah blah blah. So he was asking like all winter, I want to try goalie, I want to try goalie, I want to try goalie. But he's playing U7. There are no goalies, so that's the only reason why we tried out spring, so he could get a taste for being a goalie. So he was a goalie for spring, but we are going back to minor hockey where he will be a player. Um, so I know it's tough because if your kid gets the goalie bug, that's all they want to do. They want to be in the net. But if you kind of have that conversation with them and say, hey, if you stay out for a little bit longer, you can work on some of those skills that will translate well into being a goalie, like your skating ability, your stick handling, your shooting, stuff like that. And then also getting just a sense for how the game is played from the player perspective a little bit, that can be super beneficial. So to me, the U7, U9, you got to find a bit of a balance where I don't think, in my opinion, it's the time to start specializing yet. Yes, give them any opportunity they have to get into the net, to scratch that itch and to work on those skills and to develop. But I also think, having that extra kind of skill set to be working on is beneficial too. Just again, like we've talked about with the cross training, just making them kind of that general better athlete. So the U7, U9, I think in my opinion, if I was starting over, I would not want to be full time yet as a goalie. And then the other thing with that is in the off season, give them a break and do something else. Right now is not the time to go full in on hockey. Right now is the time to let them be kids, to let them experiment a little bit, and to let them become just well-rounded athletes. And that comes from multi-sport training and doing a bunch of other stuff and just enjoying kind of the childhood aspect of it.
Do you want me to give my thoughts, or do you want me to move into the next category?
No, I'll give your thoughts.
I'll give my thoughts. All right.
We'll kind of go back and forth, and then you can start the U11, U13.
Sure. Um, I don't know, because like when I started, like I jumped into hockey a little bit later, and I guess what would be considered U9 or whatever novice would be considered as. Um, so when I started, I jumped right into goalie right away. When my brother started playing, he went right from Timbits up to whenever he dropped out, which I think was about Pee Wee. Um, so I don't know. It's a little bit different for me to say, just because my experience was different, and for me, I don't know if I'd change that, to be honest with you. Again, just I when I started playing hockey, I wanted to jump right into goaltending right away. I didn't have any interest in excuse me, I didn't have any interest in any other positions really, or any other spot in hockey. It was just no, I wanted to be the goaltender. I don't disagree with what you said though, is that if you're starting right from the beginning in the U7 category, yeah, there's no goalies, so everybody has to be a player to at least learn the basics of it, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Um, and then when you jump into U9, again, some teams have dedicated goalies, some teams don't. Um, I think for me, I don't think I would personally change any aspect of that. Um, but I would definitely encourage, to try different things, or to try different positions, um be a player, go score some goals, work on your skating, because yeah, Nathan's right, that will translate into um being a goaltender. But if it was me personally, I don't think I would change that. I think it's just, no, I'm just jumping right in. Obviously with that, there does come like, okay, well, you're a little bit late coming into playing hockey, so you have to kind of learn things a little bit differently, or learn things a little bit more on the fly, compared to, if you were starting right from the beginning, in the U7. So yeah, for me, I don't think I'd change that. Again, depends on if Little Miss here wants to play. It'll probably be different, where we probably will start her right into, U7, and work our way up. But that'll be a decision for her to make.
Yeah. And the one thing I will say on this front too is somebody who threw a kid into the fire at, full ice, full size nets, offsides, icings, penalties, whatever. I will fully hop on board the Jamie Phillips train that hockey needs some sort of mid-sized net, because those small U9 nets with full equipment are probably a little too small for those kids. But a middle sized net where they're not jumping right to the 4x6. Like, I mean, over spring, there was a handful of games that we just got blown out. And I think like it's tough with those goalies, like, because at that age you get so many breakaways, you get so many like breakdowns because kids just don't know, right? And you get one kid that's faster than everybody and they just skate around everybody and get a breakaway. And when you're seeing 80% of the net because the goalie's tiny, it's tough and it's demoralizing. So I think giving them a bit of a better chance too, that can kind of help. And I know that they've talked about it on the Goalie Science podcast, and I'm fully in agreement with that. That if we could have some sort of mid-sized net, maybe like a 3x5, like I don't know what the size of those U9 nets are, but even if you just shrunk it by a foot each way, that would make a big difference too. So, but
Yeah, I don't know. I definitely kind of agree with the half ice stuff, or like quarter ice, whatever it is that they're doing. I do like that. But as long as there is that transition at some point as well to full ice throughout the season,
yeah,
because like when you do make that jump from U9 to U11, that is going to be um, a big change for them.
yeah,
Speaking of U11, as we translate now into the U11 U15 stage, I'll start off with this. I think one change that I would make in my career now would be just to kind of take the on ice training a little bit more seriously, especially through goaltending camps. Start to really focus on skills and not just kind of be a donkey about it. Really, um, with that, being said, as well as that, just start to pay a little bit more attention to just kind of what other people, or kind of what other goalies are doing. I know that especially throughout my time playing, I was just kind of like, I'm gonna just do whatever. Um, but I definitely think, as the training aspect becomes a little bit more serious, and just starting to have some fun with it as well, but especially to start to pay attention to kind of the technicality part of it, because that age range between U11 to U15 is so crucial in terms of development. That's where you start to see real big jumps in growth, compared to if you go from U15 to U18. But I see some goalies that are good athletically, and you can see spurts of not creativity, but you can kind of see spurts of like a come to Jesus moment, where they have that, they incorporate the changes that you're making, and they understand the technicality behind it, and then they just revert back, and it's just, there's no consistency there. So just that would be one thing that like I would change in terms of my development, is just kind of start to um just kind of take the development aspect and the technicality aspect a little more seriously.
yeah. As somebody who was never introduced to the concept of tracking a puck until I was 17 playing junior A, this kind of U11, U13 age range is like, if we're talking about the developmental approach, it's so critical for building that foundation. And honestly, for the couple of years in U11 and U13, the biggest thing to focus on is literally your tracking ability, your skating ability, your positioning, and your save execution. If you can build those four things to be extremely efficient and to be consistent, that makes the later stages of your career, when you start getting into more advanced situational stuff, so much easier. And from the development side of things, that chunk, if I was starting over now, knowing what I know now with my current knowledge, those would be the four things that I would be hammering home over the course of, the first 2 to 3 years. And I know that that can get redundant and might not be as fun. Um, but when it comes to like the development session, so you can still at like practice, and like if you go to the ODR and stuff like that, you can still fool around and have some fun with that stuff. But the development portion of it, and when you're at practices and you're thinking about what to work on, those are the four things that in this part of your career are so critical to really get consistent at. And then building off of that becomes so much easier as you go if that foundation is laid. The other thing, too, more off ice, I would start introducing some routines, but not be too crazy with it. Because usually at this age, you're not getting to the rink 2 hours before. Most of the time, you don't really, have that luxury. Like you're playing at 6 o'clock on a Thursday evening or whatever, right? Parents rushing home from work, all of that. You don't really have the luxury of the time, or wherever your rink is, you might not have the space to do much or whatever. Either way, start introducing a little bit of some routines, and keep building kind of each season. So if you start with just like maybe 5 minutes with ball work or whatever, like as an example with our 6 year old in spring this year, once he got his lower half of gear on, he would grab his blocker and glove, and I would just throw a squash ball at him, and he would just try and catch with his glove or try and deflect with his blocker. It was nice and simple. That's all we kind of did. So I think you can kind of start introducing some of this stuff. You can start thinking about, okay, what do you do after you get scored on, and like start kind of introducing that mindset, and just kind of that preparation stuff. This is also when I would say we can start maybe thinking of, kind of some of the more advanced stuff like the journaling or whatever. That's probably at the tail end of this chunk, like maybe kind of your second year U13, as you start to prepare for trying to move up into the club section of things. Even though I know now U13 does have AAA, AA, so does U11. But I mean, realistically, do,
Yeah.
does that matter too much at this age, right? Like you'll probably have a lot of kids who are AAA kids at U11, U13 that drop off, and vice versa, right? So to me, the level of play doesn't matter as much, but wherever you go, this is critical to make sure that you're getting time. Because if you're chasing the AAA dream at U11, but it makes it so you only play one out of every 4 games, is that really where we want to be for our development? Like for me right now, we want to get touches, and we want to get ice time, and we want to get exposure to the game as much as possible. So that's kind of the approach I would have for this sort of segment. Um, I don't know if you have anything to add on that.
Um, I was thinking about spring hockey a little bit, and this wouldn't still be an age level that I would really encourage spring hockey unless you had felt that there still just needs to be a little bit more for lack of a better term, development to be had. Now, what that basis is, I have no idea. Um, would still try and avoid doing that as much as possible. But if it's something that, you know, because that's what spring hockey is more so geared towards, right? Is like U11, U15 ish age range. Um, I would really only encourage to go for it if you were if you had felt that you just need to work or just need to continue just to develop on a couple of more things that maybe you hadn't had the chance to in the regular season, whatever that may look like. Otherwise, again, during that time, spring, summer, go play soccer, go play baseball, go play basketball, go for a hike. I don't care. Just go do something again that gets you away from hockey, working on other muscle groups and such in at that age range, and just again go have fun and go be a kid as well. That's basically like I never played a lick of spring hockey when I was a kid. It was more so again soccer, baseball. That was the two sports that I would play outside of hockey in the off season. A little bit of karate as well, but that's about it. And so that would be the only thing that I would say to that. Because again, like I know that spring hockey is more so geared towards um, that particular age range. So again, I still wouldn't touch spring hockey unless you absolutely felt that it would be more or a little bit beneficial to you at that point.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say that I think actually would be something to explore if you have the option is maybe doing some of those like off season, like 3-on-3 or 4-on-4 leagues or
Yeah.
whatever. Because to me, like we talked about the foundational skills, but to me also like we've talked lots about the ability to improvise and to kind of be able to problem solve when there's breakdowns, when there's chaos happening in the game. And those are perfect opportunities to get exposure to that sort of stuff, right? Like a 3-on-3 little tournament, you're getting peppered with 2-on-O's all the time and whatever. And I know when we talk about practice, we shame that sort of stuff. But realistically, those sorts of situations, especially in more of a game like kind of scenario as opposed to like a practice like scenario, is really good for developing that kind of battle, that compete level, that improvisation that we talk about. And is really good to build off of that because I know I work with some high level goalies that when we play out rebounds, they are kind of upset with, the two kind of backdoor passes and like the 4-on-0 or whatever, however many shooters we have that we do after a rebound. And I'm just like, okay, I get it. And it's not really game like for you. But at the same time, this is your chance to really work on that ability to battle and to read the play and all of that stuff. So duke it out, play it out, face some adversity of a 4-on-0 and try and see what you can do. And I might be biased because me, when I played, I loved that stuff. Like I hated going to the gym, but I would sit at the ODR for 5 or 6 hours and get shelled with 3-on-O's the whole time. And I loved it. I loved playing stuff like, last puck or rebound or juice or shootouts or, whatever those things like whatever. I love that stuff, right? The battle, the compete, the big saves. That was kind of what I lived for. And that's why I got to junior based purely off athleticism and not a lick of technicality to me whatsoever. so, um, but yeah, so we'll kind of move into that next chunk, which is that U13 to U15 to like U18 kind of age range. So kind of the last tail end of your house league career, I should say, right? So your minor hockey career, let's call it that. So this is when we're starting to look at potentially AAA and AA levels. This is where you got stuff like the CHL drafts, junior drafts, or recruiting, stuff like that. If you're at the higher levels, if you're at the lower levels, this is kind of potentially your last kick at the can before we make the shift to junior or to beer league, right? So this is where we're trying to really kind of hone in our situational skills. We're trying to learn the game. We're trying to figure out patterns and be able to kind of anticipate plays and all of that stuff. So to me, this one is really where the off ice kind of hockey IQ stuff really makes a difference. So once you start, doing video breakdowns, once you start kind of working into, some cognitive training, some vision training, getting your processing better, being able to now move away from the structured development and kind of move towards more chaotic development where there's screens, there's tips, there's options, there's passes, all of that stuff. This is kind of the chunk where we're really leaning into that because hopefully by now we've established a good solid foundation of skills, like our consistent technical skills, that now we're using that to kind of build off of and actually play the game and understand the game and be able to now react to what happens in front of us. I'd also say in this window is where we're really leaning into that preparation side of things. So now we're really working on our strength, our flexibility, right? We're working on, pregame preparation. We're working on reset routines after we get scored on, those sorts of things. This is where we're really leaning into that. And, the stuff like the nutrition, the hydration, the sleep, all of that stuff becomes very important and almost kind of becomes like micromanaged a little bit. Like you actually want to have active thoughts and intervention as to how that sort of stuff works and looks. But the biggest thing I would say too for me, if I was starting over and was in this phase again, the biggest thing is this is kind of the area too where you really want to appreciate the work you've put in and appreciate kind of the development you've had up until this point. Like start giving yourself credit and appreciation for where you've gotten to. And don't take that lightly because it goes by quick as somebody who's now like 10 years out of not playing, basically pretty close. I think it's 8, but even still, it's one of those things that before you know it, you're old, washed up, coaching, running a podcast, and you know, not playing anymore. So it does go by quick. So for those of you who your U15 to U18 is kind of your last little bit of playing, take advantage of it, have fun with it while you can. Kind of the adult responsibilities suck once you get there. So it's fun having that outlet of just being able to go play hockey, kind of forget about things for a little bit. So that's something too that I don't think gets talked about enough and doesn't get passed on enough to the younger players. And as someone who is there too, like you kind of hear it and you're like, yeah, I get that. I get it. But you don't really get it until it happens. So take us old, washed up, wise guys advice, and enjoy the ride while you can, especially if that's kind of your last little kick at the can, your last window to play.
Yeah, shoot. Now I guess I'm in that boat. um, yeah. Oh, we woke up. Um, yeah, I think with that age range, it's more so about the consistency aspect, the off ice aspect, the workouts, and the nutrition stuff, just kind of the stuff away from the ice. I don't think is where um for me personally, I mean, like, again, like, I didn't play at any triple A or double A level, so if I guess in like the house league sense didn't really matter a whole lot, but you never really thought about that at that point in time either, at least for me. But if I were to change that, that would be what I would do, is just that change of kind of how I approach the game off ice, how I look at nutrition, strength and conditioning, and then just understand pattern recognition as well too, and just the theory of the game now, as I think about it now, compared to when I even thought about it back then. Um, that would be the biggest thing that I changed, and I think again it doesn't really get talked about a whole lot, but just not that's the especially at that age range, that's what we're focusing on because we're not really focusing on anything new at that point in terms of a technical standpoint. It's still skating, it's still save execution, it's still puck handling, it's still this, and that. It's just redefine or not redefining, but it's just hammering those points home consistently at that point. So, yeah, I just that would be the thing that I would do at that point in time in my career if I were to redo it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think one of the biggest things I didn't do enough of was the off ice stuff. Again, I hated it though. I'm not a gym guy. I don't like going to the gym. I'd much rather, be playing something as my physical activity as opposed to just like weights or whatever. The one thing I really wish I knew of and knew existed when I played, and I don't think anyone really talked about it much, but was the cognitive training side of things, like the ability to process. Like I think that would have made a huge difference in my game had I known about it. But yeah, I do think taking better care off the ice because it's also good just for like injury prevention and recovery and stuff like that. So you're not 31 like I am and, struggling to get up out of the bed some days. Now, that being said, I still don't really take good care of myself away from the ring. Not that I really am playing, but I'm at the rink lots for coaching. But yeah, that's for sure a big one. Um, as we move on from that, if you are lucky enough to still be playing, and now we're looking at kind of the junior, the college, the semi-pro kind of stuff. Um, at that point, I think my biggest piece of advice would be to not, and this sounds weird, but don't try so hard. Like I find once we get to those levels, there's a lot of people, and this is not just for goalies, but once people start getting to those high levels, they start almost trying to change what got them there because they think they need to kind of reinvent themselves a little bit to get, you know, to keep going and to get to that next level and to be successful when they make those jumps. And in reality, that what got you there is what you need to kind of keep working on, and to keep building off of, to keep going, right? And we've talked about this before about building your game around your strengths as opposed to your like trying to work on your weaknesses as much, but more so building around what you are successful with and kind of minimizing your exposure to your weaknesses. It's kind of that same thing. When we get to that level, we need to make sure that we're playing in a way that helps us to be successful, right? So if you're a goalie that I've used this example lots before, but if you're Stu Skinner and you make it up to whatever level as your next level, and if you're a positional goalie that covers lots of net, that doesn't move the greatest, well, if you get to that next level, you shouldn't all of a sudden start starting 5 feet out of your crease, right? Because then you're just going to get burned, and especially with the players getting better at that level. So the big thing is kind of stay the course and keep working on what's gotten you to where you've gotten, and don't try so hard to kind of implement new things or reinvent anything. Now obviously, like, there's a balance there because you still need to be improving, you still need to be developing, and you still need to be working on some things and getting better on some things. But I find sometimes a lot of people kind of get into that trap of trying too much to reinvent themselves. So that's one thing. The other thing is find yourselves opportunities to give you a chance to succeed, right? Like if you're traditionally a goalie that has been on a team that only gives up 20 or less shots a game, try to avoid hopping onto a junior team that gives up 50 shots a game because that does not translate usually too well. And there's going to be a much bigger adjustment period than if you can get yourself on a team that's maybe like 25 shots a game, right? Maybe a little bit more than you're used to, but still kind of in that same realm. Same thing too, like we kind of talked about in the earlier stages, like find yourself a situation where you can potentially have playing time. Like as a rookie, you're not going to come in and you're not going to get 80% of the starts in most situations. Some situations allow for that, but even still, you don't want to come into a team. Say you're a 17-year-old, you're going into a junior team. Well, you don't want to come into a junior team that has an 18-year-old starter and a 17-year-old backup that they, like and have drafted or something like that, because it's going to be very tough for you to get ice time even down the road. But if there's, say, a situation where there's a 20-year-old and an 18-year-old or something like that, and you're coming in at 17, or maybe a 20-year-old and a 19-year-old, then once that 20-year-old moves on, then you kind of slide into the backup role, and then another year or two when the other goalie moves on, now it's your ball to roll with for a couple seasons, right? So um, those are the kind of things to think of if you have the luxury of choice. If you don't, though, the other thing I would say is just, I don't know, don't chase too much, I guess, right? Like I find my biggest problem when I played junior was I was always trying to think about that next level, that next level. And I kind of, would get mad about like shots against that weren't counted accurately because I'm trying to showcase for college teams, right? I'm trying to have good stats for college teams. But sometimes that kind of distracted from the moment, right? So you still have to kind of live where you're at, even though you're trying to plan for the next steps, whether it's college or semi pro or whatever the case is. But you still need to be focused on the now and have good results in the now. And by now, you also are really refining your processes. So whatever your pregame routine is and that sort of stuff, you basically got it down pat at this point. You might make a couple tweaks here and there. But one of the biggest things I would say too, if you find yourself at this level, do some coaching. Like it's amazing how much teaching others builds your um, view on the game, I guess, or your ability to see the game and think the game. That sort of stuff, if you get to the point that you can teach others, you're kind of at the point that you really understand the game and you're kind of at that level of like expertise, I guess is the best way to put it. So that was one thing that I wouldn't change. I did some coaching when I was in junior. I would actually have said, like, if I would do it over again, I would probably try and do more, just because that really does kind of help change your perspective on things and kind of help you understand the game a little bit better. So, and again, appreciate what got you there and the route you took, I guess.
I'm gonna go see if I can put her to bed.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I never played at that level. I've coached at that level, but I don't think I can definitively say for sure. I think maybe from the outside looking in, I think yeah, just I would agree with what you're saying there with the just kind of chasing aspect of it. I think it's just especially with the goalies that I've had while coaching juniors is it didn't well it bothered me a little bit, but just and I understood why. Just they're trying to chase on the better opportunities to further advance their career, and that's fine. But if you get caught chasing so much, um, and trying to chase the next opportunity before you've finished with the first one, it's not a good look, and you potentially hinder yourself more. Um, but to each their own. Um, yeah, I don't know. Beyond that, I mean, you've kind of basically covered everything there that I think would need to be talked about. So I don't think I really have anything else to say beyond that.
Perfect. Well, I really don't have anything else, so you want to bring us home then?
Bring us home there, little dinger home run action.
Yeah.
All right. Dear. All right, so that'll do it for another episode of the DIY Goalie Podcast presented by True North Goaltending. Go check us out, truenorthgoaltending.com. Like we have already stated at the start of this podcast, both of our 5 day long camp and our 4 day long camp have been officially sold out. Thank you to everybody for booking all of that. But if you are still interested in working with us, we do have some facility sessions that do run all year round. We also offer ringette sessions and a bunch of other stuff. We also have some video breakdown options and mentorship stuff there as well. We do offer some multi-session packages as well. So if you are interested with that, both on the hockey and ringette side, go check us out, truenorthgoaltending.com. You can go check us out on your favorite social media platforms, whether that is Facebook, Instagram, whatever, all at True North Goaltending, except on Instagram because we like to be different. That one is YEG Goalie Coach. You can follow us you can follow me rather on Instagram as well at MondayGC. You can follow us on your favorite social or non your favorite social media platforms. Already covered that. You can follow us on your favorite podcast platforms, whether that be Apple, iHeart, or Spotify. Still not iHeart. The iHeart one isn't updating for us for whatever reason, so we should look into that. But definitely Spotify and Apple Podcasts for sure. We have released new episodes every Wednesday. Again, follow us on the YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/True North Goaltending, where you can watch the video version of this and you will be able to actually see the actual image of the drill whenever we do drill of the month. So you guys can go check that out. Again, if you're returning listeners, hit the share button. More goalies that we're able to bring together, the better, especially if you're watching over on the YouTube side of things. Hit the like button, hit the share button. If you are a new viewer or listener to our little corner of the internet, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button. Like I said, new episodes drop every Wednesday. On behalf of myself and Nathan Park, this has been the DIY Goalie Podcast presented by True North Goaltending. Make some saves, goalies. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.